The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered under the light of 3 artificial suns. The massive round table, made from rare metals from 17 worlds, sat in the center. Around it, representatives from the most powerful species in the known universe gathered for what would become a historic meeting. For over 3,000 years, the Council had ruled the stars. Humans had only been members for 80 years, newcomers by galactic standards. At first, the older species welcomed humans for their fresh ideas and ability to adapt quickly. But now, that welcome had worn thin. Commander Natalie Wright wiped a drop of sweat from her brow. The room felt too hot, though she knew it was just her nerves. She straightened her blue Earth Diplomatic Corps uniform and looked across the table at the alien faces watching her. Some had too many eyes. Others had none at all, but all shared one thing today: disapproval. The council speaker rose from his seat. Speaker Zorn was a Valaxian, tall and thin with shiny scales that changed colors with his mood. Right now they glowed an angry red. His long fingers tapped on the table as he began to speak. The council has reviewed the Earth request for expansion. Rights into the Orion sector, he said, his voice deep and smooth. We reject this request for the 3rd time. Humans move too fast. You take too many risks. The Orion sector must develop naturally without human interference. Natalie gripped her datapad tightly. This was the answer she had expected, but still, anger burned inside her chest. Next to her, Admiral Frank Dawson, an older man with gray hair and a face lined from years in space, shook his head slightly. Speaker Zorn, Natalie said, keeping her voice calm. Earth and the human colonies face growing populations. We need room to expand. The Orion sector has over 50 habitable planets that sit empty. No other species claims them. Why deny us? A Medusan representative, whose body looked like floating blue gas inside a clear containment suit, spoke next. Humans have been in space for less than 500 years. Yet you already occupy 30 star systems. No species in Council history has expanded so rapidly. It is concerning. Frank leaned forward. Is that not what space exploration is about? To reach out, to grow, to discover? It is about balance, said a short, furry Talaxian. Humans upset the balance. You build too quickly, change too much. Other species need time to adjust to changes. Humans never wait. Natalie stood up. This was her last chance. The people of Earth have respected Council rules for 80 years. We slowed our growth. We shared our technology. We fought in your wars. We have earned the right to grow into unclaimed space. Speaker Zorn's scales shifted to a deep purple. The decision is final. The restriction stands. This meeting is over. As the alien representatives filed out of the room, Natalie and Frank remained seated. They waited until they were alone before speaking. That's it then, Frank said quietly. Earth gave us clear orders. If they said no again... Natalie nodded, slowly. I know, I just hoped it wouldn't come to this. They walked silently through the shining hallways of the council building. Beautiful artwork from 100 worlds decorated the walls, but neither human stopped to look. They had seen it all before. Outside, the gleaming towers of Centauri Prime, the council capital world, stretched toward the sky. Alien ships of all shapes and sizes flew between the buildings. Their own ship waited at the diplomatic dock, the Earth vessel Harmony, small compared to the massive alien craft around it. Once inside, Natalie went straight to her private office. Frank followed, closing the door behind them. 80 years of trying to fit in, Natalie said, looking out the window at the alien city. 80 years of being treated like children who need supervision. Frank sat heavily in a chair. The Earth president was clear. No more restrictions. Either we get equal treatment or we leave. And now we leave. Natalie turned from the window. Start the protocols, Frank. I'll draft the formal response. While Natalie worked on the diplomatic message, Frank opened a secure channel to Earth's military command. In another room, Lieutenant Gregory Phillips, a young officer with steady hands and serious eyes, prepared the ship's communication system for an encrypted transmission. 3 hours later, they gathered in the ship's secure communication room. Natalie looked at the simple message on the screen. Denied. Countdown initiated. Send it, she said. Gregory pressed his hand against the scanner, and the message shot across space toward Earth. In that moment, the future of humanity changed, forever. Within hours, the message reached Earth. The president didn't hesitate. Orders went out to all human colonies and outposts across Council space. The response was immediate but quiet. No announcements, no arguments. Human citizens began to pack essential items. Business owners sold their properties at low prices. Researchers copied their data and erased their systems. By the next day, human ships were quietly leaving Council worlds. Families boarded transport vessels with only what they could carry. Military personnel destroyed sensitive equipment before departing. The evacuation had been planned in secret for months. Operation Exodus was now in motion. On a small council, farming world, a human farmer named Henry sold his land to a surprised Talaxian for 1/10 its value. Why sell so cheaply? The Talaxian asked. I won't be needing it anymore, Henry answered simply. In research labs across Council space, human scientists like Dr. Olivia Grant downloaded their findings and wiped their computers. Taking a vacation? Her alien colleagues asked when they saw her packing. Something like that, she replied with a small smile. In the business district of Centauri Prime, human shop owners closed their doors. Banks processed the withdrawal of human funds. Ships filled with human workers departed space stations and mining facilities. It happened quietly, without panic or announcement. Back on the Harmony, Natalie watched the initial reports come in. Everything was proceeding as planned. Humans were leaving Council space, and the Council didn't even realize what was happening yet. How long before they notice? Gregory asked. A few days, maybe a week, Frank replied. By then, most of our people will be gone. Natalie stared at the stars outside the viewport. For 3,000 years, the Council has controlled the known galaxy. They think they can control humanity too. She turned to her colleagues, determination in her eyes. They're about to learn they're wrong. 2 weeks after the Council's final rejection, Ambassador Dennis Coleman stood before his mirror in the human embassy on Centauri Prime. He adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform one last time. Today would be his last day as Earth's ambassador. Today, humanity would change its path forever. His assistant, Maria, knocked on the door. Sir, your transport is ready. The Council is gathering now. Dennis nodded. He had served as ambassador for 12 years. He had tried to build bridges between humans and the older species. He had failed. Let's not keep them waiting, he said. The Grand Council chamber was packed. Word had spread that the humans had requested an emergency meeting. All 17 Council species had sent representatives. Floating camera drones recorded everything for broadcast across the galaxy. Dennis walked to the center of the room, his footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. He carried no notes. The words he would speak had been practiced many times. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice strong and clear. For 80 years, humanity has walked among you. We joined this council with hope and excitement. We believed we had found our place in the stars. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes, eye stalks, or sensory organs of each alien representative. For 80 years, we have followed your rules. We have changed our ways to fit your expectations. We have fought in your wars. We have shared our discoveries. We have compromised again and again. A murmur ran through the alien delegates. This was not the apology some had expected. Today, that time ends. Dennis's voice grew firmer. Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies withdraw from the Galactic Council. Our borders are closed to Council vessels. We will forge our own destiny among the stars. Shocked silence filled the chamber, followed by loud protests. Speaker Zorn rose from his seat, his scales flashing bright orange in alarm. Ambassador Coleman, this is most irregular. You cannot simply withdraw from the Council. There are treaties, agreements. Dennis cut him off. All human representatives have already provided formal notice of withdrawal from those agreements. The process is complete. This is not a negotiation. This is a goodbye. A tall, insect-like Xindi delegate clicked forward. This is absurd. Humans occupy only 30 star systems. You cannot survive without council trade routes, without our technology, without our protection. Several alien delegates nodded in agreement. The Valaxian Prime Minister spoke next, his voice condescending. This is clearly a bargaining tactic. Humans are simply throwing a tantrum. They will return when they realize their vulnerability. Dennis smiled slightly. Time will tell. Farewell. With that, he turned and walked out of the chamber, ignoring the shouted questions and demands to return. As the doors closed behind him, the council erupted into chaos. Meanwhile, across council space, the human exodus continued in quiet, orderly fashion. On the frontier world of New Montana, Dr. Alicia Ramirez worked quickly in her laboratory. The planet had been a research outpost for 15 years, home to the largest collection of alien plant samples in human space. She could not take everything, but she would save what mattered most. Her assistant, Paul Martinez, carefully loaded frozen seed samples into a portable storage unit. His young face showed worry. Dr. Ramirez, he said, do you really think we can do this? The Council controls all major trade routes, the most advanced technology, and nearly all habitable worlds in this arm of the galaxy. Alicia looked up from her work and smiled. They think they do, but they've never really understood us, have they? She walked to a hidden panel in the wall and pressed her hand against it. The wall slid open to reveal a small room filled with equipment the Council had forbidden humans to develop. We've been preparing for this day for years, Paul. Every restriction they placed on us just made us more creative. Paul's eyes widened. But this is advanced wormhole technology, Alicia finished for him. Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, every major human outpost has a hidden cache like this. We're not as helpless as the Council believes. Across the stars, similar scenes played out. On Council Trading World Nexus 4, human merchants sold their shops and warehouses at low prices, claiming family emergencies called them home. On the mining moon of Tertius, human workers requested leave, never to return. In universities, hospitals, and military bases throughout Council space, humans quietly departed. Council security forces hardly noticed at first. Human movement had always been free within Council territory. By the time patterns emerged, thousands of transport ships were already heading toward human space. On the luxury resort world of Azure, a Medusan tourist approached the famous human restaurant Earth Flavors, only to find it closed. A handwritten sign on the door read, "Gone home. Thank you for your business." In the shipyards of Proxima Station, alien supervisors found entire human work crews missing from their shifts. Their personal quarters had been cleaned out with nothing left behind. In the Council's central database, human access codes suddenly stopped working. Human diplomatic channels went silent. Human trade representatives canceled all pending contracts. 5 days after Ambassador Coleman's announcement, the Council finally realized the full scope of what was happening. Emergency meetings were called. Security forces were sent to detain human ships only to find they were already gone. Speaker Zorn called an emergency session of the High Council. "This is unprecedented," he declared, his scales now a worried purple color. "No species has ever withdrawn from the Council. We must respond." The Xindi general raised a clawed appendage. "We should send warships to Earth immediately. Show them the consequences of their decision." The Medusan representative's containment suit bubbled with agitation. "We cannot start a war over this. Humans may be few, but they are fierce fighters. Let them return when they realize they cannot survive alone." On the edge of human space, Captain Victoria Lane commanded a small border station. Her crew watched nervously as 3 large Council warships approached. "They're hailing us, Captain," said the communications officer. Victoria nodded calmly. "Put them through." The angry face of a Valaxian commander appeared on screen. "Human station, you will power down and prepare to be boarded. By order of the Galactic Council." Victoria smiled. "I'm afraid we don't recognize Council authority anymore. Please respect our border and turn back." The Valaxian laughed. You have one small station. We have 3 warships. What will you do to stop us? Nothing, Victoria said simply. Then she pressed a button on her console. Suddenly, 50 human warships appeared from behind the nearby moon, weapons ready. They had been waiting, cloaked and silent. The Valaxian commander's scales turned pale white. Without another word, he cut the transmission. The 3 council ships turned and departed quickly. Across the border of human space, similar confrontations ended the same way. The council had never known humanity's true military strength. Humans had been hiding their capabilities for decades, preparing for this very moment. The silent departure was complete. Now the real work of independence would begin. 6 months passed after humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. At first, council species mocked the humans' decision. News broadcasts across council space predicted humans would come crawling back, begging to rejoin, but humans did not return. Human space went quiet. Council spy ships reported little activity at the borders. Many council leaders began to forget about the human problem. They had more important matters to deal with. Then the reports began to arrive. It started with a routine patrol by a Valaxian scout ship near the edge of the Orion sector, the very region humans had been denied. The captain, a young officer named Drell, noticed unusual energy readings coming from a supposedly empty star system. Take us closer, Drell ordered his crew. Maintain stealth mode. As they approached, the crew fell silent in shock. The 4th planet of the system, a world the Council had classified as developing, was now surrounded by massive orbital structures. Ships moved between them like busy insects. The planet's surface glowed with the lights of large cities. This is impossible, Drell whispered. This world was empty 6 months ago. His science officer looked up from her instruments. Captain, these are human structures, and according to my scans, they've been here for years. More patrol ships were sent to other parts of the restricted Orion sector. Each returned with the same news. Humans everywhere. Mining operations on asteroids, research stations orbiting gas giants, colony ships moving between systems, an entire, hidden network of human activity in a sector they had supposedly never entered. The Council called an emergency meeting. Speaker Zorn's scales were almost white with shock as he addressed the gathered representatives. We have been deceived, he declared. While pretending to follow our restrictions, humans secretly built colonies throughout the Orion sector. This is an outrage, the Medusan Prime Minister's containment suit bubbled furiously. How did they hide this from our patrols? From our sensors? No one had an answer. The Council voted immediately to send a high-level delegation to Earth, demanding explanations. Ambassador Threll, a senior Valaxian diplomat, was chosen to lead the mission. His ship, the Righteous Fury, was the newest and fastest in the Council fleet. 2 days later, they approached the Sol system, humanity's home. What they found there changed everything. My gods, whispered Threll as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. What have they built? Jupiter and its moons were surrounded by massive shipyards and orbital stations. Hundreds of vessels moved between them, many larger than anything in the Council fleet. Defensive platforms dotted the space around the gas. Giant, their weapons clearly visible. As they moved closer to Earth, the sights became even more shocking. Mars, once a simple mining colony when the Council last received reports, was now covered with domed cities. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a ring of connected habitats and factories, and Earth itself was surrounded by a web of orbital platforms that formed a defensive shield around the planet. A human voice came over their communication system. Council Vessel Righteous Fury, this is Earth Defense Command. State your business. Threll swallowed his surprise and answered with as much dignity as he could manage. This is Ambassador Threll of the Galactic Council. I request an immediate meeting with your leaders regarding violations of Council space. There was a pause then. You will be escorted to Earth. Any deviation from the provided flight path will be considered hostile action. 4 human warships appeared around them, sleek and powerful. They guided the Council vessel to Earth, where Threll and his delegation were taken to the Unified Command Center, a massive complex built into the side of a mountain. Inside, they were led to a large meeting room where General Michelle Porter waited. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and the confident look of someone used to giving orders. "Ambassador Threll," she said, not bothering to stand as he entered. "What brings the Council to Earth after 6 months of silence?" Threll tried to hide his anger. "We have discovered human colonies throughout the Orion sector, a direct violation of Council restrictions. How do you explain this?" Michelle smiled slightly. "Those restrictions no longer apply to us. We left the Council, remember? But these colonies are years old." Threll slammed his hand on the table. "You were building them while still bound by Council law." "Yes," Michelle said simply. "We were." "How?" Threll demanded. "How did you hide this from us? How did you build all this?" He gestured around him, indicating the massive development they had seen. Michelle stood and walked to a large window overlooking a busy shipyard below. "From the day we joined the Council, we knew we might one day need independence. Every restriction you placed on us forced us to find new ways to grow, to build, to expand, ways you never considered. We developed cloaking technology your sensors couldn't detect. We built ships that could travel through areas of space you thought impassable." She turned to face him. "While you watched our official colonies, our real expansion happened elsewhere. We've been preparing for independence for 80 years. Meanwhile, on the far edge of known space, beyond the reach of Council sensors, a human exploration vessel named Horizon drifted silently. Captain Edward Patterson stood on the bridge, watching the stars. His ship had been exploring unknown space for months, mapping regions no Council ship had ever visited. "Captain," called Sharon Russell, his communications officer. "We're picking up an artificial signal from the nearby system." Edward straightened his uniform. "First contact protocol, everyone. Sharon, send the standard greeting package." The crew waited tensely. First contact with a new alien species was always dangerous. Would they be friendly? Hostile? The answer came minutes later as a ship appeared near them. It was unlike any design they had seen before. Beautiful, with flowing lines that seemed almost organic. A face appeared on their communication screen. The alien had 4 eyes and pale blue skin, but its expression seemed curious rather than threatening. "We are the Rylaxians," the alien said in a surprisingly good reproduction of English. "We have been monitoring your movements in this sector for some time." Edward introduced himself and his crew carefully. "We come in peace, seeking only knowledge and possible friendship." The Rylaxian made a gesture that might have been a smile. "We know of your kind, humans. We have observed your recent separation from the Galactic Council." This surprised Edward. "You know of the Council?" "Indeed. They contacted us centuries ago offering membership. We declined." Sharon leaned forward. "May I ask why?" "They demanded we follow their development timeline, their rules for growth and expansion. We chose our own path instead." Edward and Sharon exchanged meaningful glances. Here was a species that had made the same choice humans had, but centuries earlier. "Perhaps," Edward suggested carefully, "our peoples have more in common than we realized. Would you be open to discussions about cooperation? An alliance of independent species?" The Rylaxians' 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "That is precisely why we have chosen to reveal ourselves to you now. The galaxy is changing. The time of Council dominance is ending. Together, we can build something new." As the human and Rylaxian ships moved side by side toward the nearby planet for formal talks, neither crew realized they were witnessing the beginning of something that would reshape the galaxy forever. The alliance of independent species. 1 year passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected. In the Grand Council chamber on Centauri Prime, Speaker Zorn faced an angry crowd of representatives. His scales had turned a dull gray, the color of stress and fear. "Order! I demand order!" he shouted over the noise. The Zindi delegate slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Our trade profits have dropped 30%. The new human trade routes bypass our systems completely." A Medusan representative's containment suit bubbled furiously. They are sharing technology with non-council worlds. Technology we forbade them to develop. Speaker Zorn raised his hands for quiet. The situation is concerning, but the council has stood for 3,000 years. This human rebellion is a temporary problem. From the back of the room, an unexpected voice spoke. Is it? All heads turned to see the Tellarite ambassador rise from his seat. The Tellarites had been loyal council members for over 2,000 years. For centuries, we have followed council rules, the Tellarite said. We have accepted limits on our growth, our technology, our potential. And what has it given us? Stagnation. Speaker Zorn's scales flashed warning colors. Ambassador, what are you suggesting? I am not suggesting, I am announcing. The Tellarite stood taller. As of today, Tellar Prime and all Tellarite colonies withdraw from the Galactic Council. We have signed an alliance agreement with the humans and the Rylaxians. Shock silenced the chamber. The Tellarites, leaving? Impossible. Before anyone could respond, the Tellarite continued. For too long, the Council has controlled the galaxy through fear and restrictions. The humans have shown there is another way. Those who wish to join us are welcome. With that, he walked. 3 other representatives from smaller council races stood and followed him. The stars were beginning to tremble. On the edge of what was now called Alliance Space, a massive space station hung among the stars. Named Redemption Station, it had been built in secret by humans over 10 years ago, hidden from council sensors by advanced cloaking technology. Inside the main research lab, scientist Kevin Howard stood before a gathered crowd of humans, Rylaxians, and Tellarites. At 45, Kevin had spent 20 years working on a project the council had forbidden, stable wormhole technology. Today, he announced to the crowd, we change how we travel among the stars. Behind him, a large ring-shaped device hummed with energy. Screens showed technical data that few in the audience fully understood. The council said this technology was too dangerous to develop, Kevin explained. They said it would destabilize space-time. They were wrong. He pressed a sequence of buttons on his control panel. The ring filled with swirling blue energy. This wormhole leads to the Proxima system, 50 light-years away. A journey that would take days with our fastest ships will now take seconds. Small probe entered the wormhole and disappeared. Moments later, a signal appeared on Kevin's screen. The probe has arrived safely, he announced. The crowd erupted in applause. A Rylaxian scientist stepped forward, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence, their way of showing excitement. With this network in place, council control of traditional space lanes becomes meaningless, she said. We can travel anywhere, trade with anyone, without council approval. The implications were enormous. For thousands of years, the council had maintained power by controlling who could travel where. That power was now broken. While the Alliance celebrated its technological breakthrough, the council called an emergency meeting. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Tellarites' departure had started a chain reaction. Speaker Zorn looked at the latest report with disbelief. 3 more species requesting Alliance membership negotiations? This is unacceptable. The head of Council Intelligence, a Valaxian named Krell, displayed a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Alliance territory, growing larger by the day. The humans have introduced wormhole technology, Krell reported. They can bypass our checkpoints, our custom stations, our defense perimeters, and they're sharing this technology with their allies. An older Zindi war leader growled, in frustration. Then we must use force, crush this rebellion before it spreads further. From a hidden observation post near the council capital, Admiral Susan Cooper watched the emergency session through secret surveillance equipment. The council didn't know that humans had placed spies throughout their territory years ago. Susan was humanity's unofficial ambassador to non-council worlds. Her job was to find new allies and monitor council reactions. Beside her, Carl Wilson, her aide, watched the council members argue. They're panicking, Carl noted. 3 more species have requested alliance membership negotiations just this week. Susan nodded. The Tellarites joining us was the turning point. They were one of the founding members of the Council. Their departure has others questioning their loyalty. On the screen, the Council voted to increase military patrols along Alliance borders. Some members demanded immediate military action to reclaim Tellarite worlds. "Do you think they'll actually attack?" Carl asked. Susan shook her head. "They're divided. Some want war, but others see it would be suicide. Our technology has surpassed theirs now." She turned off the surveillance feed and looked out the window at the gleaming towers of Centauri Prime. "We never wanted to destroy the Council," she said quietly. "We just refused to let them restrict human potential. Sometimes the stars need to tremble for new ones to be born." Across Council space, protests erupted on multiple worlds. Citizens who had watched news reports about the Alliance demanded the same freedoms, the same technologies that Alliance worlds now enjoyed. On the Council world of Andoria, thousands marched in the streets, carrying signs that read, "Freedom to develop," and "End Council restrictions." On Vulcan, scientists publicly released research that had been banned by Council decree, sharing it freely with anyone who wanted it. On dozens of other worlds, the whispers grew louder. People began to question why they couldn't have what the Alliance had, why they couldn't grow beyond the limits the Council had set. Back in Alliance space, the first commercial ship prepared to travel through the new wormhole network. Captain Lucy Owen stood on the bridge of the trading vessel Wonder, ready to make history. "All systems ready, Captain," her first officer reported. Lucy smiled. "Take us through." The Wonder entered the swirling blue energy of the wormhole and in an instant emerged 50 light-years away. A journey that would have taken days was over in seconds. As news of the successful journey spread across the galaxy, more cracks appeared in the Council's carefully maintained order. The stars weren't just trembling now, they were beginning to realign. 5 years passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The galaxy looked very different now. The Council still existed, but it had changed dramatically. Gone were the strict rules and restrictions. Gone was the control over member species. After losing nearly a third of its members to the Alliance, the Council had been forced to reform or face complete collapse. The Alliance had grown from just humans and Rylaxians to include 37 different species. Many were former Council members. Others were species the Council had ignored as too primitive for membership. Together, they formed a new power in the galaxy based on cooperation rather than control. On the space station Concordia, built in neutral space between Council and Alliance territories, representatives from both groups gathered. The station was beautiful, combining architectural styles from dozens of worlds, a symbol of the new era of cooperation. Director Jason Foster walked through the station's main corridor. Once a junior diplomat during the human withdrawal, he now led the human delegation to the first official recognition talks between the Council and the Alliance. In the station's Garden Dome, he met with Zara Miller, one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in Council space. She now led the Council's reform movement. 5 years, Zara said, looking out at the stars visible through the clear dome ceiling. "Sometimes I can hardly believe how much has changed." Jason nodded. "When we left, many thought we were making a terrible mistake. They said humans couldn't survive without the Council. And now the Council barely survived without humans," Zara smiled. "Did you know it would turn out this way? When humans left, did you expect all this to happen?" Jason looked at the stars. "Not exactly. But we knew that freedom to grow, to develop on our own terms would lead somewhere amazing. The Council tried to make the galaxy stable by controlling everything. We showed that true stability comes from cooperation between equals. Throughout Alliance space, the changes were everywhere. On Proxima Centauri IV, human and alien scientists worked side by side at the galaxy's most advanced medical research center. Dr. Howard Ellis, who led the facility, had developed cures for diseases that had plagued Council worlds for centuries. The shipyards of Europa, once a small human mining colony on Jupiter's moon, now produced vessels designed with technology from a dozen different species. Chief Engineer Lisa Baker oversaw a workforce from 20 worlds. The wormhole network now connected hundreds of star systems, allowing instant travel and communication across vast distances. Trade flourished. Cultural exchange programs helped different species understand each other better. Even in council space, life had improved. The reforms forced by the Exodus had led to greater freedom for member worlds. Technology that had been restricted was now freely shared. Species that had been considered lesser now had equal voices in council decisions. That evening, representatives from former enemies gathered for a formal dinner on Concordia Station. The tension that had marked early meetings between the council and Alliance was gone, replaced by cautious friendship. Captain Diana Nelson of the Alliance flagship Liberty raised her glass in a toast. The room fell silent. 5 years ago, the stars trembled when humans left the council, she said. Today, they shine brighter than ever before, not because one power defeated another, but because we found a better way forward together. She looked around at the gathered aliens and humans. To the new constellation we've formed, not through force or control, but by recognizing that every species deserves to chart its own course among the stars. Everyone in the room raised their glasses. Even the Valaxian representatives, whose people had once been the strongest supporters of council control, joined the toast. As Jason Foster looked out at the starfield later that night, he thought about how far they had come. Humanity's departure had indeed made the stars tremble. But from that trembling, a new and better galaxy had emerged, one where freedom and cooperation replaced restriction and control. The stars had not just trembled. They had rearranged themselves into something brighter,